Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to introduce to you Rustic Goat. He has been here the whole time, he just usually is not in frame. I would like to make a humble suggestion that you just go ahead and hit the like button on this video right now because I can already guarantee you are going to like this video. I have some really good news. I have a doctor who is evaluating me thoroughly for a spinal CSF leak. It happened. I get emotional every time I say it out loud. After 6 years of all of this, guys, I'm being thoroughly evaluated for a spinal CSF leak. And the doctor that I'm in contact with now knows a lot about spinal CSF leaks. So he actually pointed out a couple of things on my MRI that are maybe predictive that I might have a spinal CSF leak. There are literally signs on my MRI that I could have a spinal CSF leak. So paired with my symptoms and my history and my hypermobility, he really does think I could be leaking. So in this video, we're going to get into my MRI findings, and then I'm going to tell you what my next steps will be. The reason it's so emotional that I'm getting worked up for this spinal CSF leak is that I've been sick for 6 years now, and it's been like, you know, you get sick, you assume you're going to get better eventually. And then I was diagnosed chronic migraine, and so I thought I would never get better. But then I had high pressure, and Diamox worked really well, so I thought I would get better. But then Diamox didn't go very well, and now I feel really sick again, so I thought I wasn't going to get better. But now, suddenly, I'm getting evaluated for a spinal CSF leak. I have a doctor who actually truly believes I have this thing. And there are actually findings on my MRI that point to me being a really good contender for having a leak. I'm shook. I can't. First off, a doctor believes me. It's been torture, just trying to get someone to listen to me when I say I fit the symptoms. Once you get diagnosed into a box, like a chronic migraine box, it is so hard to break out of that box. It is so hard. And the only reason this doctor is willing to get me out of that box is because he's so familiar with spinal CSF leaks and the connection between people who have POTS and people who have spinal CSF leaks. And also EDS, chronic migraine, a whole lot of other things. You have to watch my video from last week. I'll put a card here. My story just keeps unfolding and it is crazy. So let's go ahead and talk about my MRI findings. Everything I'm going to tell you today, guys, is not medical advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am just vlogging my own experience. If this information might be helpful to you, please do talk to your doctor about it. But I am not a medical professional. I am a patient. I have literally notes of misspelled things that I phonetically wrote down. Wait, phonetically means like by sound, right? Like I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just sharing my experience. Here is a picture of a brain. It may or may not be my brain. It is my brain. Okay, so the smooth white border around the brain that is inside the skull but outside the brain, that bright white isn't supposed to be like that. That is pachymeningeal enhancement. And my understanding of it is when you have a leak, your skull is a fixed volume, but then the leak happens and the brain stuff starts sagging and you're losing volume. So then the contrast dye goes in between the space there because it has to get pulled. The plasma gets pulled or something in between the stuff. This video started with a headache, but we're quickly turning into migraine, Jen. Huh, buddy? And that is why I'm so excited to get evaluated, guys. Imagine if I just don't turn into migraine, Jen, anymore. Alright, we're off track. So, pachymeningeal enhancement. My doctor said I have a decent amount of it and that he's surprised the neuroradiologist didn't call it at all. So, yeah, that's a thing. Let's go over here for a quick tip. Am I flushing? A little bit. Quick tip, guys, if your doctor is only looking at the report that comes from the radiologist and they're not looking at the images themselves, you should probably get a new doctor. That is not thorough enough. Your neurologist should want to see the images of your MRI. It's pretty important. My MRIs have always been read as normal, but this doctor knew of other things to look for. Let's look at another picture. Here is the, I'm no doctor, mid-sagittal of my brain. So there's a little doohickey that hangs down that's called the mammillary body. And the distance between that and the top of the pons maybe shouldn't be less than 6.5 millimeters. But mine is only 5.6 millimeters. So that is somewhat predictive but not diagnostic for a CSF leak, a spinal CSF leak. That one is called the Bern criteria, B-E-R-N. The other thing on this image that he pointed out was another distance where it kind of narrows down. Why am I trying to describe it? I'll add arrows on the picture, duh. Between the pons and the clivus, I'll take his word for it. There are a couple of papers saying that it should maybe be more than 5 millimeters, but mine is only at 3.6. So once again, that's somewhat predictive, but not diagnostic. Somewhat predictive, but not diagnostic really just means that I should have a super thorough looking at for a spinal CSF leak. I know it's a little bit weird that we're looking for a spinal CSF leak even though my stuff runs out of my nose, but now I'm kind of wondering if the stuff that's running out of my nose and clogging my sinuses and making me sound this nasally when I speak, when I'm symptomatic, I'm wondering if maybe that's that pachymeningeal enhancement. This part of the video is pure conjecture. This is not something that my neurologist said. But I noticed that when I'm symptomatic, I'm definitely more nasally. We know that I get sniffly, and I also know that when I do certain movements, I get sudden gushes of fluid. Since the pachymeningeal enhancements are white on the MRI, that means it's fluid. So what if the fluid in there is the fluid that's coming out, and the fluid that's in my ear? Meaning that this whole time I have had a spinal CSF leak, but it's only looked like a cranial CSF leak because of that stuff gushing out. Pure conjecture. Just guessing. Because something I don't think I ever told you guys is that back when I first started suspecting a leak, I actually thought that I matched the symptoms of a spinal leak more than I matched the symptoms of a cranial leak. It's just that I had that physical leaking out of my nose. So anyway, pretty soon we're gonna have some actual real answers because I'm actually getting thoroughly looked at. What are the next steps? I am so glad you asked. Since this doctor believed me, the next step is a full spine MRI. Only because it's non-invasive, the full spine MRI is usually not very helpful in finding a leak. This doctor understands that you can have negative imaging, so after that he orders further testing. What? I'm flushing thinking about it. I don't have to worry if my spinal MRI ends up normal. I don't have to tell him that spinal MRIs can be normal with a spinal CSF leak, guys. He already knows it. This is insane. When you're so used to advocating and needing to gently teach your doctor random stuff, it's just so different to have a doctor that's like this. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so grateful. Okay, where was I? This is new news to me, guys. It's still hitting me. Because I might get better. That's what always hits me, is that I might get better. Oh, I'm so happy. The next test is CT myelogram, which is more invasive. They inject a dye into your dura, into your spinal column, and tilt you so the dye comes up to your brain, and then they do imaging. CT myelogram, I guess they do CT. That's super invasive and not very fun, but might be on the table for me at the beginning of 2023. To be frank, at this point, I don't see how I could not be a contender for it with the way that this doctor truly thinks that I'm leaking. And then if we're able to find a leak, then you can blood patch it. And we'll get into that later. But for now, just wanted to get that out there and get you guys up to speed on this crazy news. And I hope that explains last week's video. I know last week's video was kind of blunt and like out of nowhere. I'm suddenly like, whoa, POTS and spinal CSF leaks have so much in common. I was like, what? But it's because a couple of weeks ago I started being evaluated, and that was why I was watching talks. It's because I was like, trying to let this soak in. I sort of stopped thinking about getting better. I wasn't really thinking that a doctor was going to be like, suddenly, whoa, there are signs of a leak on your MRI. And I was so convinced that I was the crazy one that then I had to go and look at leak stories and learn about leaks again in order to convince myself that I am leaking and that this doctor is right and that maybe I can actually get better. I had to flip my head the other way around. It's super weird. And logically for YouTube, for chronological order, I wanted you guys to get this video first and have any context about why I was connecting POTS and CSF leaks like out of nowhere on the channel. But I felt like last week's message was just way more important, way more time sensitive, and had to get out because the more people hear that, the more people can get better. I know that video can help a lot of people. So I know if I put that video out a week earlier, that's gonna help people a week earlier and they're gonna get better a week earlier. I know it seems negligible to a lot of people, but when you're living in it every single freaking day, that week is everything. More to come later, so make sure that you're subscribed. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.